Welcome to Blue Talks.
Hello, everyone. So Lance Mikkel, Refocus on Happiness. Today, I'm going to talk about 6 steps to re-energize your life and take it to the next level in days. I'm probably going to do more than 6 steps, but 6 sounded like a very nice number, so that's the number I picked. But as far as even just setting the stage here, I come in from a little bit of a different vantage point. Most people, maybe 90%, engage me because they're in the midst of a really bad challenge, a breakup, divorce, something of that sorts. So that's really the vantage point I come at all this from here. And it's interesting, when I first speak to somebody and they talk about what they want, I usually say to them, I say, I could probably simplify what you really want better than you can. Isn't it true? Remember, they're going through a divorce, breakup, something of that sorts. Isn't it true what you want at the end of the day, regardless of what they do or not do, to feel great, bounce back, have a great day, regardless of who you talk to, don't talk to, whether you resolve something, don't resolve something? Isn't that what you really want? True independence from your external world for your ability to have a great day. And of course, they always say, yes. That's what everyone wants at the end of the day. So I'm not a master at this scrolling thing here. But anyway, that's what I'm talking about here. And this next slide, of course, says, helping people to build that resiliency muscle. But if I really wanted to simplify what it is, it's about, again, feeling happy. And what's really interesting is when people talk about the ultimate emotion they want to feel, one of the top ones people say, the ones they really strive for, is that word called gratitude. But if you think about it, when you ask somebody, how would you describe the ultimate feeling of where you really like to be? They don't even use the word gratitude. They use the word joy, enjoy. That's really the ultimate place you really want to be. So my talk here is about to let you guys know there is a very, very, very clear, straightforward path to having that conditioning, that consistency, that ability to get back to happiness, back to power, regardless of what's going on. Truth is, regardless of whatever anyone's going through, I always say to them, with no disrespect to your family, your friends, what you've gone through, at the end of the day, it's all wiring, like a muscle. You either have that predominance for feeling great, bouncing back, or you don't. I always tell people when they start my program, like, listen, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a medical person, but I have tons of those people do the program, and there's a reason for that. And I've never had someone ever debate with what I'm telling you here. And also, you're going to find out your brain grows, evolves, strengthens, very similar to a muscle. And I use myself as an analogy. I'm like, listen, I'm in great shape, I work out, I lift weights, I do a lot of things, but I'm not conditioned, strengthened to run a marathon. By the way, I don't know if it's okay if I curse here or not. I'm going to try and limit my words. Normally when I talk to people, that's a little bit of something I do here. But anyway, I'll say, listen, I'm not conditioned to run a marathon. If I tried to run a marathon today, I would absolutely kill myself because I'm not conditioned that way. However, and I go, if I started training those muscles, something I've never done before, and I do it for like maybe the next, say, 2 or 3 months, here's the interesting thing for you. Then so I'll tell my client, maybe in 2 or 3 months, I could run that marathon because I'm now conditioned that way. And the real cool part to most pay attention to is after I ran that marathon, maybe not the next day, because I need a little kind of bouncing back, but maybe 2 days later, I can run again. The problem is you have not conditioned yourself to run that marathon, or in this case, that emotional marathon. So what I teach people is a very practical way to create those muscles so their ability to bounce back from anything, and I mean anything, is something they can have true control over. And the key words that I talk about is control and consistency, right? Okay. So also, I would say my average client is probably over 50 years of age. And one of the reasons it's interesting, one of the reasons people hesitate sometimes to work with me is because they say, oh, I used to be happy. I used to be king of the world, queen of the world, whatever. I had someone the other day, it's like, oh yeah, everyone used to come to me. I was like their rock, and now I'm not, and I feel embarrassed that I'm not able to do that. And I'll say, listen, I go, anyone can be happy when you're in freaking Disney World, and can be happy when you're in freaking Italy. That takes this amount of skill. The question is, can you do it when things are not going so well? Because if you can't, you never had this skill in the first place. It's interesting, if you look around Facebook and you have all these self-proclaimed gurus out there talking about happiness, how to love yourself, how to get back there. These are the same people that you'll see within the next year or two, all of a sudden they're putting stuff on Facebook, oh, you never really know people. The real question is, if as far as a true skill, that real conditioning, can you feel great when things are not going your way? Because if you can't, you never had this skill in the first place. And that's what allows people to be kind to themselves and say, okay, I get it. I'm working kind of muscle I've never done before, so let's get started. And one thing I also tell them too is, at the end of the day, a lot of people have concepts, they have information, they don't have that transformation. It really doesn't matter what you know conceptually. Can you apply it? Can you do it? Can you live that? Can you bounce back? Can you do those things from a conditioning standpoint in that moment? If you don't have that skill. It does not matter what you know, it matters what you can do. I'll kind of talk about this a little bit in a few minutes here, but I actually start off as a dating coach. That's how I started off over 10 years ago. And I always tell people when I speak to them the first time, like, you might not know me personally, but I guarantee you've known some of the coaches I've worked with side by side. And all the stuff I learned years ago was really fantastic, really amazing skills. And it's kind of a shame because sometimes it gets a little bit of a bad rap, some of these communication skills. But one of the reasons why I shifted from the dating coaching to the emotional conditioning, and I was telling people I'm not a dating coach per se, but I will give the most powerful process practice on earth to actually employ those communication skills. And when I worked with these dating coaches years ago, the problem is that, when they're on fire and they feel good, they were amazing. But when their emotions got the better of them, it's amazing how they were like depressed and feel so good. And all those ideas and techniques went out the freaking window as soon as their emotions got the better of them. So why I do what I do now is because at the end of the day, you have to have that initial, you have to have that engine, that crux, that foundation, which is that emotional conditioning. And again, another thing I tell people the first time I speak to them is like, your life is not as complicated as you think it is. There are the two most valuable, and this is Tony Robbins 101 if this sounds familiar here, but Tony Robbins says it really well. The two most valuable resources in your life for everything you want is not complicated. Emotional states, energy. That's game, set, match. Think about it. If you can control your emotional states and feel happy regardless of the world around you, aren't you the master of life? Think about it. If everyone here got better and better and better every day at feeling great, bouncing back, regardless of your external world, doesn't that make you the master? If you really have true independence from all what's going on, that's game, set, match. So anyway, it's about actual application, that conditioning, that wiring, that strengthening, really going from the concept. So one of the reasons I went from what I did in the previous life to this here is because at the end of the day, all those techniques, all those ideas mean really nothing if you can't actually control the way you feel and the way you bounce back. So those are the two most valuable resources. And so at the end of the day, I'm going to talk about really probably a lot more than 6 insights, things that will actually allow you to address that core so you can get a lot more consistent. Again, this is not about perfection, it's about control, it's about consistency. I've got tons of people that lost I had one guy that graduated not too long ago, he lost his father, breakup, a whole storm of things. I'm doing so good here, not using the curse words. And he was just blown away how 2 days later, how much better he felt. And I said, listen, you're finding out in the most practical sense, you had a muscle all along you never knew you had before. And again, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a medical person, even though I have tons of those people do the program, but I always talk to people in a very common sense way. If you lived your whole life and you never did bicep curls, would it really be fair to tell people that you have a bicep problem or bicep deficiency or some kind of bicep childhood weakness? No, you just never went to the freaking gym. So it's really learning that actual process so you can strengthen that. So again, your ability to bounce back gets quicker and quicker and quicker. Now, as far as the house rules here, the way I have it put here, this actually is going to allude to one of the first 6 things I'm going to talk about here. First things first, a lot of people think they have all these jobs. They think they're a mother, father, a business owner, they work, they have a relationship. At the end of the day, think about it. If you feel great, don't you do better at work? When you feel great, don't you make better decisions with yourself, your family? When you feel great, aren't you a lot more fun to be around? When you feel great, aren't you more likely to get a promotion, get better business deals? Of course. So how many jobs do you really have? Isn't it the truth that you actually have only one job? And that's to feel freaking amazing. If you feel great, all the other jobs become easier. So a lot of people, first things first, is just like, listen, do you really have your priorities straight? Because if you're allowing all this stuff around you to distract and dilute you from your one job, you're really not doing anyone any services. So one of the things I'm talking about in a little bit here, as far as one of those 6 insights, is really understanding at the end of the day you have one job. And if you really understand that, then why would you not want to go to Feel Good Avenue every day? You would never want anyone to derail your train to Feel Good Avenue when you knew when you got there, all your other jobs would become a lot easier. Relationships, decisions, everything. So first things first, for anyone to do this here, I'm like, listen, this has got to come first. This has got to be the priority over anything else that you do. You have that one job set, all the other jobs become a lot easier. And a lot of people, Tony Robbins also says this really well too, success without fulfillment is one of the ultimate tragedies. It's like, it sucks when you feel like everything on paper is good, you should feel happy, but you're not. So it's really understanding at the end of the day, if you really look at all the things you've done, all the stuff you've accomplished, it's really for one outcome. It's just to feel good. So why don't we just hit that biologically and skip the freaking middleman and have your ability to feel consistently great every day regardless. And that's really what it comes down to. It's really understanding the core, the crux for that, how to do it, and understand you really have the ability to have true control, consistency. If you look at someone's brain, for example, when they're feeling some of these emotions, whether it's joy, happiness, anger, fearful, you can see areas light up. It's just like a muscle. It's like, do you want to work the right ones? Do you want to starve the wrong ones? Do you want to go to the right gym and stop going to the wrong gym? That's ultimately up to you. But you have to make that decision. Feel Good Avenue sounds like a much better destination than Despair Drive. So, insight number 2 here. Again, I'll probably have a lot more than 6 here, but I'm going to do the best I can here over my next 9 minutes and 40 seconds here. Look at this slide here, right? This little image here. A lot of people try so hard to do what I'm talking about here, but they fail. And one of the reasons is, and again, one of the ways I'll help you guys have some real clarity here, is a lot of people try to use affirmations or they try to establish some kind of mindset. But if you think the word mindset, what does that really mean? Mindset means it's set in the mind, like a muscle, like a conditioning. If you really have that set mind, then it's very easy to execute. You can't speak how you don't feel. You can't talk how you don't feel. So at the end of the day, one of the reasons why affirmations from vast majority of people do not work is because it's just words. If you can't connect emotionally to what's in front of you, it's words, it means nothing. You have to have the ability to actually connect emotionally. And yeah, for example, if you look at this one right here, there's no happy talk here. It's like, you know what, if not now, when? Now sounds like a pretty freaking good time to take control of my life, my destiny, all the people that, that I care about. I mean, and if you look even a little deeper here at this here, and I'm just trying to do the difference between, like, for example, one of the ways people try to classically strengthen their mind, they try to use these affirmations and they wonder why they don't work. Again, you cannot speak or think how you don't feel. But if you look at here, everything here is based in truth. There is no happy talk. I mean, even just the idea of like someone waiting till tomorrow or next week, well, think about it. Is tomorrow even a real thing? Have any of you ever actually ever lived in tomorrow or next week? No. The only time you've ever lived in is now. If you even, I mean, it's interesting that human beings are the only species that actually use time. If you were in the wild and you had the opportunity or you're fortunate enough to run into like some kind of wild animal like an eagle, and you said, "Hey, Mr. Eagle, what time is it?" That eagle will look at you like, "What kind of stupid ass question is that? It's now." But notice there's no happy talk here. So when someone's starting at a very low emotional place, they first have to allow themselves to start at a lower level and rise. I have some people I'll start with the first week alone and say, "Oh my God, I finally understand why this gratitude practice I had was so hit or miss." It's easy to get into gratitude when you wake up here. But if you start down here your day and you've got some really bad news or whatever, good luck with your "I'm blessed and God's got my back." That's not going to work out very well. So that's one of the other things, again, too, that will really, as far as a daily practice you'd want to have something that actually understands that emotional climb, and as well as understanding there's a reason why affirmations classically for people do not work. But bottom line is, once you have that, again, this is not about perfection, it's about progression, consistent strengthening. But once you have that and you know, like, wow, I can have a great day regardless. I have true consistency, true control. That's freedom. And that's when you start getting excited for the day because you're like, you know what? I don't know who I'm going to come across. I'm going to have some really challenging people. Maybe yes, maybe no. But either way, I will have the ability, the consistency, have a great day regardless. And especially for someone going through a breakup or divorce or some kind of really big challenging situation, that's like Xanadu for them because it's like, wow, oh my God, I didn't have to suffer? Yeah, you never had to suffer all along. You're finding out the most practical way you had a different kind of muscle you never knew you had before. And yeah, you'll have more energy, better decisions. I mean, it's winner, winner, chicken dinner across the board. So as I said here, I start off, I think it's important just to see where I'm coming from here. I start off as a dating coach. And again, my progression has been into that emotional conditioning because in the end of the day, it's like anyone can employ or have certain thoughts or whatever, but if they're in that emotional roller coaster, if they're at emotional battle, how can they control their emotions in that conversation to give themselves the best opportunity, as well as the person they love, to have the best outcomes? I mean, true or false here, if you guys look at some of the most challenging conversations you ever had, and they say relationships are the ultimate soul school. Nothing can bring someone to the knees or their heavens quicker than a relationship. If you look at those conversations you had, we all have had them, we're like, oh my God, here we go, right? If you look at them, isn't it true? One of the biggest things you were afraid of was how you would feel and how long it would last for if you didn't get the answer you wanted. That's what keeps people really scared and nervous about having certain conversations. But what if you had true control, consistency, that no matter what they said, did, agreed with, didn't agree with, your ability to bounce back that day and say, you know what, I actually feel pretty amazing regardless, that's a whole different world. And that's really, purely from a conditioning standpoint, what I do. But yeah, that was my shift from the dating coaching world to this here. So I've already kind of alluded to a little bit of those 6 shifts. Again, there's quite a bit more. I just picked 6 because I thought it sounds like a good number. Yeah, a quick quiz here. And if anyone wants to jump in, they can. What emotion do you think zaps your energy and drive more than any other emotion? 1 syllable. The word is?
Shame. Shame.
Shame is not. Shame is definitely close. Fear. And we could debate this, by the way. In my world, it's fear. Anyway, so my point is, if you look at fear and worry, what does that do to your stress levels, right? So, and another thing too is when people are fearful, what is one of the biggest symptoms you will experience and see when you're really in the emotion of fear? What do people typically do? For example, they're blanking to work. They're rushing to work. Oh my God, my boss is going to say this. Oh my God, what if I don't do that? Rushing is one of the biggest symptoms that someone is living currently in a state of fear or those emotions of stress. So it looks like I only have time to give one big practical thing here as we start to get down to the 4 minutes here. But rushing is one of the biggest things here. So anyway, bottom line here, I do want to give everyone here something really, really practical they can use right out of the gate here. I do teach a specific 30-minute conditioning process. I'm definitely not going to get into that here today, but at the very least, I can do some paradigm shifting where you can start to see why some things maybe have worked for you and some things have not. Affirmations is an awesome example because a lot of people try to use those. Affirmations are commonly misunderstood. You can't speak how you don't feel. If you cannot connect emotionally, it's freaking words. It's absolutely worthless. So one practical thing is most people live their, at least a big part of life, in autopilot. And again, progression, not perfection. We're never going to be perfect, but we can get better and better at being in control when we find ourselves there. Now, the easiest way to know you're in autopilot or you're rushing or in worry is you'll feel that just nasty undercurrent of tension going down your body. When you feel that, you're really not in control of your command center. You're literally just going through the motions. Most people that are in that state, they don't even remember how they got to work, or they don't remember the food they ate. They're just next thing they know, they're done, they're at their location. But the next time you feel that undercurrent of stress, and by the way, I'm going to say this too because I think this is really important here. Again, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a medical person, but I've had tons of people do the program. I've never had someone ever debate me what I'm going to say here. I have never had someone, including doctors, medical people, psychologists, therapists, ever graduate my program and tell me they still think anxiety or depression is a real thing. That's my experience. You can debate me, agree, or whatever. I've never had someone graduate and tell me they still think it's real. In my experience of coaching, not saying I'm a doctor again, in my experience of coaching, anxiety is nothing more than a chemically induced imbalance in the body. And there's 2 easy ways, the required discipline, of course, easier said than done, that will recenter you, leverage your body's biochemistry so you can get out of that. The first one that people leave to go out of balance is they don't watch their breathing. Now, a lot of people talk about breathing techniques, right? The one that I teach, a lot of ones work, is where you do an inhale for 4 and an exhale for 10. The reason why that works, it literally induces a natural tranquilizer effect. So the next time you find yourself on autopilot where you're rushing, and you don't even know what you're doing, most people, when they get anxious, they're taking too much oxygen and they're not exhaling enough carbon dioxide. So they're literally creating a chemical imbalance to their body by not watching their breathing. Again, there's many breathing techniques out there. This is just one. This is the one I teach, but it'll literally do the exact opposite of what an anxious person does. So the next time you find yourself on autopilot, that is one thing you do in a very practical way to start relaxing yourself. It literally induces almost like a natural tranquilizer in your body to start relaxing your body. The second one is a little bit more unique for people. In my personal experience, again, anxiety is nothing more than a chemical imbalance that is created by not watching your breathing and not watching your movement. When people are on autopilot, they're just going through the motions. They're driving, their foot's on the gas, they have no idea what the hell they're doing. The next time you find yourself on autopilot, do the breathing, and then whatever you're doing, do it slower. Just by making a conscious, deliberate effort to do whatever you're doing slower, whether it's talking, for example, even right now in this conversation here, notice I'm consciously, deliberately slowing down my speech. To do that, regardless of what you're doing, you have to re-engage your brain. It's the brain that makes the command, let's do things slower. So by definition, you're out of autopilot. Voila, magic. So those 2 things alone, anytime you are in that anxious autopilot state, will get you out of it very, very quickly. Okay, so yeah, happiness is a skill. More accurately, it's a conditioning. So really recognizing that's what it is, having that as a priority, that hey, if I feel good, I get to Feel Good Avenue, everyone else is going to benefit from that. That's one of the biggest things to get to where you want to go. Really recognizing for what it is. Like I said, I always tell people, with no disrespect to your situation, your relationship, your family, whatever, it's all freaking wiring. You can choose to work the right muscles and starve the wrong ones. That's ultimately up to you. And I'll close on a couple last little notes here. For example, I was alluding to a gentleman who graduated, a few months ago, and he just crushed it. He lost his father, had a bad relationship, and when I have someone like that, again, most people come to me are going through relationships, but I'll have a good number of people that are going through like a death in family, something like that. I'm like, listen, I go, if that person who passed on really loves you, if they really loved you, would they want you to suffer? So why the frick do we do that to ourselves? If they would look above from us and they'd want us to have a good day and enjoy ourselves, why do we allow ourselves to buy into the idea that we need to grieve and mourn and whatever? They'd want us to celebrate and enjoy our day, so why don't we do that today, right? And again, it's really about recognizing the truth. At the end of the day, it's all wiring, conditioning, nothing more, nothing less. So yeah, to kind of wrap things up here, bottom line is, at least I want to set the stage for just some shifts that you can, in a very practical way, allocate towards a daily practice that would allow that strengthening, that wiring, that conditioning. And anyway, Lance Mikkel, refocusonhappiness.com. Maybe I'll kind of scroll a little bit here. I think I have maybe 2 or 3 more kind of leeway minutes here. Maybe I'll have some last little bullet points I think are really worth mentioning here. Oh, and it's also good to kind of emphasize to people what this really is. When I say conditioning process, it's not like, I always tell people, it's not like I'm not a human being, like I'm not a lobotomized creature. I mean, like, obviously I go through emotions. I'm married, I got clients. I mean, I go through things just like them. It's not about not feeling things. It's just not about staying there. One of the best analogies is like an emotional bulletproof vest. If you had it, I would never encourage anyone to try this, by the way. If you had a bulletproof vest and someone shoots you and you're the most technologically advanced in the world, it's gonna hurt. But if you had that and you knew the worst that would happen is you get knocked on your butt, get the wind knocked out of you, but 2 or 3 minutes later, you're back up, you're okay. You might not like the bullet, but would you still fear it? That's really what it is. Again, like a conditioned muscle. I can run that marathon now after training for 2 months, but I'm still gonna be tired and sore, but my ability to bounce back, that refractory period becomes quicker and quicker. And when you have real control and consistency of that, what's there to fear? You might not like these things, but for the first time in your life, you have a true power, a true choice. And that's real freedom at the end of the day. Anyway, Lance Mikkel, refocusonhappiness.com. If anyone would like to contact me, I'm on Facebook as Lance Mikkel. And we'll stop there. I'll leave the rest for part 2 some other day. All right, thanks everyone.